I couldn't even believe when I'd heard that women weren't part of health studies until the mid 90s. I'm hopeful that we can obviously get to that down the line with the narrative, but most importantly, get to the women that need it right now, because there are so many women right now that need the help, that don't know who to talk to. I'm curious to see what 5 years from now is going to look like. I think it's a time for celebration.
If you've heard of the longevity Bible Lifespan by Professor David Sinclair, you know that living well is more important than just living long. In fact, this show is dedicated to the science of beauty, wellness, and longevity. That's why I'm so thrilled to partner with Melrose Future Lab. Future Lab is Australia's first supplement range focused on extending not just your lifespan, but your health span. Available exclusively at Chemist Warehouse, these affordable and science-backed supplements are the key to aging well. I am so honoured and delighted to have you on the show. I was speaking to Dr. Vonda Wright last night and I said, guess who I'm having on the podcast tomorrow?
She's wonderful. I love her. I love her. I can't wait to see her again in person. It's been a while now.
Well, I want to take it back to the very beginning. You have taken the conversation around midlife from something that we dread and we hide and we don't want to talk about to something that's exciting and sexy and potent and powerful. And you flip the dialogue on its head, but you were someone who was in the spotlight. People knew your face, people knew your voice. You were at the very pinnacle of broadcasting as a news anchor. And for anyone who's listening from abroad, to be in that position in the US is literally like being God. It is so fraught with politics and it is so hard to win, and you won. So I'm wondering
Thank
if you
you.
could take us back to the moment where everything just flipped.
Yeah, I didn't even know what was flipping at the time. It was 2019 in November, and I was sitting on the news desk and plugging along just a regular night. And I had had a problem earlier in the broadcast, and I'd had this like several times leading up to this, where I'd look at a word, I'd see it, recognized it, but couldn't get it out of my mouth. We didn't have vocabulary then like brain fog, or I didn't. And so I didn't know what it was. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know what's happening to me. I just like, I'm forgetting things. I can't remember stuff. Like my memorization skills used to be great. And then they were like nowhere to be found. But this particular night, it was around 10:30 and we were in a commercial break. And I was sitting there and I got what I've now realized was like this epic hot flash where it just kind of heat tore through my body, sprung out everywhere. I had sweat everywhere and my heart started racing where I could hear it in my ears, heart palpitations. And I was like very nervous that I wasn't going to be able to catch my breath and move on to the next part of the broadcast. Some male coworkers escorted me to the bathroom, the women's bathroom, and I went right down to the floor to just kind of cool my body down and stop my heart from racing. And I got up about 20 minutes later and didn't know what had happened. I knew I never finished the broadcast, which is the first time I'd ever like walked off of a set not finished.
Wow.
My co-anchor finished the broadcast. And then I went to my doctor and I went to another doctor. I wound up getting blood tests. I was given antidepressants from from my therapist, saying maybe it's anxiety. And I found it, I got a note on my patient portal a few months later that said, in menopause, any questions after some blood panels were done on me. And that's when I realized
Oh,
I
I
was in
love that. Any
menopause.
questions?
Yes. Any questions at all? I was in menopause and I had no idea. I had no idea. I thought, oh my gosh, I'm too young for this. And a little did I know that I was the absolute average age. And that's kind of where the journey began for me.
I was listening to Brooke Shields' audiobook and she
Yeah.
had a similar experience on set. And I
Yeah.
was listening to your podcast with Halle Berry and we're hearing like this isn't an unusual introduction to menopause.
No.
And what I love about the book that you've written is, you preface it by saying, this is the manual I wish I had. This is the conversations I wish someone had had with me. And this seems a
Yeah.
universal desire and a universal need, right?
Yeah, you're so right about that. I really thought I was like, "Oh my gosh, look what happened to me." And then I realized, "Oh my gosh, look what's happening to all of us." And so I think that's when I became very, I wouldn't even say interested, but just kind of almost obsessive with like how little we know about this time in our life and how much we have to learn and what we need to share and how even if we I didn't have a mom later in life. My mom died when I was young, but even if I had had a mom, a lot of moms have never spoken about this with their daughters. And
That was
so
my
it was,
experience.
yeah, it was amazing to me what we just didn't and don't know. It was just really shocking, honestly.
Well, went through menopause at 45. I had absolutely no
Mhm.
idea until I was 47. I had all
Wow.
of the symptoms,
Yeah.
absolutely all of them. I went to my aesthetic physician and said, "Oh, do you think you could do something about this? I'm feeling some laxity." And he said, "I think it's your hormones. Let's go get those checked." So he referred
Wow.
me to
Mhm.
another doctor. And she said, "When was your last period?" And I said, 2 years ago. And she goes, "Well, you've had menopause and
Wow.
we need to get you an HRT," which I did not want to
Yeah.
go on because
Yeah.
of all of the anxiety around that stupid World Health
Mhm.
report that was incorrect. So
Mhm.
she,
Mhm.
thank goodness, really held my hand and provided me with lots of data and said, if for nothing else, if just for vanity, I want you to give this a shot. And then when I had the conversation with my mom, I said, "Do you want to tell me when you went into menopause?" And she goes, "Why? Why would you want to know that?" And I said, "Well, turns out that I had it when I was 45 and I didn't know about it. And I had all the symptoms. My life
Yeah.
fell apart and I didn't know." And she said, "Well, don't tell anyone. No one needs to
Yeah. Wow. Wow. It doesn't surprise me though, as much as I'd like to say it does, because I just am really so clear on how much shame has been wrapped around all this for so long, and it's going to take a long time for us to erase that part. But I'm hopeful that we can obviously get to that down the line with the narrative, but most importantly, get to the women that need it right now, because there are so many women right now that need the help, that don't know who to talk to, that don't know who to share all of this with. And I feel for them, and I do feel as if the conversation is taking on this global voice, which gets me really excited. So I hope we never have another generation like we were in any capacity where nobody would talk to us about that.
What you have built in terms of community is nothing short of extraordinary. And,
Thank you.
I obviously you were bankable and likable and
Thank
beloved,
you.
and that was validated through your broadcasting career. And as I said at the top of it, you don't get to be at the level that you were without like repeatedly being validated as being extraordinary. But you have
Thank you.
now built a community of over 4 million women. You created and funded and got up a film, The M Factor, which I've seen twice, by the way. And your social media content is extraordinary. And by extraordinary, I mean that there is so much of you in it. There are so many of your social media posts that I have bookmarked. I can honestly say that I
Thank
have
you.
shared more of your social media posts than any other thing other than cat videos, maybe.
Thank I
It's
like those too.
always you. It's always you. It's your hot girl walks. It's your menopause smoothie.
Thank
It
you.
was your wedding. You remarried at
Thank you.
50. Um, so many so many aspects of who you are deeply resonate. And yet you've also been able to compassionately and carefully tell the story of so many other women through
Thank you.
your platforms and through your books. And I'm wondering if you could share with us a little bit about the journey of creating that epic, epic film documentary, The M Factor.
Thank you. Thank you for saying all that. It really means a lot. I look at the film now, and when we were creating it, we got turned away a lot. We got a lot of people are like, menopause. Nobody wants to watch a menopause documentary. Nobody wants to fund a menopause documentary. And we just really knew. I partnered with a friend here in New York who is a producer on the Today Show, which is one of the national morning broadcasts here. And then we partnered with two other women who had done documentaries before. We said we really want to do this, but it was really hard, so we said, "All right, we're gonna just do it ourselves." And we decided, like, that was it. We weren't waiting for somebody to give us permission to do a documentary. So we started asking women around the country, like, for their stories, doctors to contribute their time, researchers to talk to us, neuroscientists to share their data with us. And we did the best we could to get as much of the newest information as possible, but also go back and share some of the history of where this is where we've come from
That
and
was
what we've
the
come through.
best part of the show. My goodness.
Thank you.
I wept. I wept in some of the parts, and I'm just tearing up thinking about it when whew, some of what you shared in that, and I would urge anyone who's listening to this, the number one thing you need to do for yourself as a woman, forget menopause, forget anything. As the history of women, of what's happened
Mm,
to our bodies, how we've been treated medically, how we've been treated
yeah.
experimentally and not very well.
Yeah.
Some of those insights, the cultural insights, the international insights about how women's health has been just so neglected and so
Yeah.
S yeah, it's such an opportunity for change.
And I had no idea. Like, I mean, it wasn't anything I thought I couldn't even believe when I'd heard that women weren't part of health studies until the mid 90s. Like, that didn't even register in my mind that that could be a possibility in this day and age. And so when we set out to do the film, we wanted to do two things. We wanted to really drive the conversation. We wanted women to be able to talk openly about it. And I think what excites me the most is not the film, but it's the conversations that happened afterwards. Like, I don't know how many people you saw the film with. Did you see it in a room of people?
I saw it online. I saw it online
Oh,
with,
okay.
Shelley Horton.
Yes, of
She was
course.
hosting it, and I
Oh,
saw it on her
wonderful.
website, and I was so excited because I didn't know where to see it in a theater
Yeah,
in Australia,
yeah,
and so I watched it on that, and then I watched the replay on that because I just needed,
wonderful.
and I was like, my brain was exploding with.
Yeah,
And my heart was exploding too, and sometimes with
yeah.
sadness, but then at the end of it with so much hope, and I wanted to
Mhm.
tell everyone. You're right, you started
Mhm.
conversations.
Yeah, that's what it was all about. Because I think that the conversations that happened afterwards just blew me away. I was even just at a screening here in New Jersey on Tuesday night, and it was unbelievable the conversation that was happening. And I thought, wow, this is amazing because it's all over the world. Like all of us, it's like we've been silent. And so that was really the goal with it. So it surpassed anything I could have ever imagined that it would do. And it wasn't fancy. It wasn't created fancy, but it was created with the real raw facts of what we've been through as women, and I
It's all
think
we
that that's why
needed.
it's resonated. That's all we needed, and I think that's all we
It's
needed,
all
so
we
I've
needed.
been really thrilled about the response, and I'm hopeful that it helps stop that next generation of women from feeling that pain, quite frankly.
My friends and colleagues and people who I really love hosted the So Hot Right Now in
Wonderful.
Australia, and I was lucky enough to ride on their slipstream of success and watch these women do something extraordinary. Dr. Kerry Cashel,
Amazing.
Alexandra Isaacs, and of course, the stunning, wonderful Crystal Barter.
Yeah.
And then after that event, and it was obviously emceed by Shelley Horton, who is an
Mhm.
extraordinary woman. And so after that, you came on board and you hosted the world's hottest menopause party online at a studio
Yeah.
in Nevada. And that was wild.
Thank you. We had such a good time trying to like meet merge the two. And we're like, this is global. Yeah, it was really a fun, exciting event. I'm hopeful that we get to do it again, even bigger and bring more countries in. I think it's a time for celebration, and I don't think we've ever had a celebration in menopause. And I think it's long overdue. I think we celebrate every other part of a woman's timeline, and then this one we hide, and I don't think that's okay. And so, if that's just a little sliver of what we can do to show people that this is a time that you can look forward to, that it's not a time that you have to hide or your best years are behind you, then I hope we contributed to that in some way. We had pink pom poms and we had just a fun time. We had like some amazing speakers there and we got to bring in communities from all over the world. So I was really, really excited to see it and see people so excited about it.
It had such a amazing ripple effect as well. I wanna ask you, I wanna just pivot slightly over to the midlife
Mhm.
conversation, if I may,
Sure.
because
Yeah, I'd
I
love to.
think the conversation around menopause has also opened the doors for having very honest, a new conversation around midlife. And
I agree.
part of the conversation that comes with the menopause movement is evaluating where we are in our health, in our bodies, and also having a think about where we want to go. And I think, one of the things that I really focus on in my podcast is the conversation around longevity because health
Mhm.
span and lifespan. none of this matters if the lifespan doesn't matter unless you have health span.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you are able to take hold and take control of your health span and your vitality at midlife, then you've
Yeah.
got the potential for another at least 30, 40 great years ahead of you. And I'm
Mhm.
wondering if you can share with me your experience about the conversation around midlife that sparks off the conversation around menopause.
Yeah, I mean, the conversation I think around midlife is I agree with you. It's become so fascinating, right? That we've it's like we cracked open the door a little and now we're like, okay, pushing all the way through. I think what I see when I see the two combined, and I don't even know which comes first, but I think that I
Yeah.
see women feeling free. I feel like I see women and young women saying like, wow, these aren't years that I have to dread. Like I'm really excited about what's ahead. I think I'm seeing women not be afraid and say, "Now what?" But saying, "Okay, when?" And I think that there's something exciting to that. I think that our best years are not behind us. I think that all these different decades represent something different. I think menopause, going through that time is not easy. I think we feel a little bit of freedom. I think we feel a little bit of a time that we know it's time to take care of ourselves because if not now, when? And I think we're in that other second half where we have a lot to give that comes with wisdom and it comes with teaching and it comes with being a mentor. And I think if we embrace that versus dread the fact that that's coming or regret the fact that we're not younger, then we really miss out on what's happening right now.
You speak to so many celebrities, and what's actually quite exciting is that so many women in the public eye from different fields have now banded together, and you have the confluence of medical experts, scientists,
Yeah.
celebrities, businesswomen,
Yeah.
leaders openly discussing not just the medical aspect of menopause, but also the sociological aspects of midlife. And
Yeah.
for me, I think it's hearing the conversation from all these different data points and all these different sources that's made it that's made me feel confident to talk about it on my show with my friends to my daughter. And I know that the menopause has changed the dialogue around what it feels like and what the representation of women at 40, 45, 50 plus. Did you get pushback when these 2 universes were colliding, the celebrity world, the doctor world, the influencer world?
No, I actually am really, I love how you put it because I really agree with you. All these worlds coming together, I think, is what's moving the needle. And I love the fact that at the end of the day, we're all women. It doesn't matter where we came from. It doesn't matter if we're celebrities or we're influencers or we're doctors or we're scientists or we're politicians. And so I think at the end of the day, we've all realized like this is so important that nothing else can stand in front of this. And so it's really been special. It's been really, really interesting to watch. It's been important to happen, and I think it's only going to get louder and louder and be a lot stronger. So I'm excited about that.
That's wonderful to hear that, and I saw it with So Hot Right Now here in Australia. We had Dr. Mary Claire Haver, Dr. Louise
Mm.
Newst, Dr. Kelly Casperson, who's also on the show, Dr. Vonda Wright, and then some Australia
Yeah,
Birds as well. And the camaraderie and the friendship and the respect that everyone had, whether they were doctors, whether they were, figureheads or leaders in their own space. And I feel that that's happening also in the US. You see Naomi Watts
yeah,
on the same platform as Dr. Lisa Mosconi. And there seems to be that seems to be that collegiate, very female sisterhood that's emerging from these conversations. And I don't want to sound twee, but it feels so natural for women to story tell and pass on their wisdom through storytelling, through holding hands together and bringing up the next generation. And I think that that's part of your momentum. Would you agree that that's also happening in the US?
oh yeah. I think it's happening in the U.S. and I think it has to happen. I think it's a pretty beautiful thing. I think we're experiencing something in this lifetime that I don't know that other, many generations, they've all seen different things, but I think this is a really special one. I think we're seeing it in all different areas. I think that I'm curious to see what 5 years from now is going to look like. I'm excited to see what that's going to look like for younger women and for women our age.
Reinvention is pretty hard to do. Part of the menopause conversation is reinventing your health self and taking charge of your body. But beyond that, when life is at any kind of T junction or crossroads, we have to make a decision about who we want to be next.
Yeah.
And I feel that by the time you get to midlife, we've had that crossroads quite a few times, whether it be through death,
Mhm.
divorce, losing a parent, changing
I have a
careers,
great update to
having
share from
children, not having
Melrose
children,
Future Lab.
children leaving.
Hormonal health
And
is a vital hallmark of aging
you
and
speak to
longevity. And whether
reinvention
you're
in a
navigating
very
perimenopause or menopause, Melrose Future Lab's
first
new
steps
ultra
first
complex supplements
way.
are here to support
And I'm
you.
wondering if you could share with
Backed by
us
clinical
and anyone
research
who's
and using
listening and does
advanced
feel
technology for
overwhelmed by this
effective
concept of
absorption, these
reinvention, whether it's
formulations are designed
once
to
or
provide relief
constantly.
through every
What are some of the
phase.
principles that
Find them
you've used
exclusively at Chemist
to good
Warehouse.
effect in your life?
Always read the label and
Yeah.
follow the
I mean, I don't,
directions
I
for
think that
use.
reinvention does seem overwhelming and scary because essentially we're saying, okay, everything I did before was fine, but now I've got to do it all again and better and start from scratch. And so the reinvention narrative, I think it's really a transition, just like menopause is. It's who we are, shifting who that person is into another place and time. For me, I had to get my health under control first. I had to feel better. I had to mentally be able to be stabilized and feel like I could even think about something else. And I think in retrospect, was very lucky that it came to me through that process, right? Of finding what was important to me again. I went back to school to study integrative nutrition. I was interested in continuing and curious to figure out how I could do something to help myself. I do hormone therapy, but at that time I didn't. And so I was like, how am I going to take care of myself the right way and feel good and feel strong? And so I think that the reinvention for me came with that, but I don't think it's ever easy. And I left my job after I'd been in this kind of space for a while, knowing that this advocacy work and what I was creating with the film and now the podcast and book was important to me. But it doesn't come without those days that I wake up like, what did I just do? I left my career of 30 years. Why did I do that? It doesn't come without that. I have those days just like everybody else. But I would say that you don't have to have it all figured out on day one, that it's going to morph very differently day to day. And I would really try to answer these four questions instead of what am I going to do? What's next? I would answer the four words. What do I want? Like, what do you want? Do you want to have a little freedom in your day to day? Do you want to be talking to doctors and scientists and researchers every day? Do you want to spend more time with family and not put this focus, on whatever the career is? I think you've got to answer what you want, and then you can figure out where you want to go or what you want to be again if reinvention is something you want to do, because it might not be take the same form that the first part of our career did.
And in terms of one of the things that you talk about, which I really appreciate, and I think it's probably the thing that I've shared the most with people, is you talk very candidly about missing your old self and then
Hmm.
catching yourself. So
Hmm.
whether that be looking at, someone who's in broadcast media and in the spotlight, you must have 1,000, well, not 1,000, hundreds and thousands of photos of yourself, video clips of yourself. And, you look back on those, and I do, and I don't have the same career as you, and celebrities certainly would have a similar experience to you, is look back on films and go, "Oh my goodness, I miss that 38-year-old self.
Yeah.
Wow, her, you know, she looked hot there. There's that shot.
Yeah.
I wish I could get back to that bikini body. I wish I could do that." And I love how you acknowledge that you still have those days. I'm wondering if you could share with us how to catch it and then harness it so it doesn't turn into a spiral to the abyss.
Yeah, well, of course I have those days. I mean, I think we all have those days. We all have those days we look back and we're like, oh, oh my gosh, look at the jeans I was in, or my hair. It was so. I actually was looking at a photo the other day, and I was like, my hair was so long. In reality, my hair was like stringy and falling out because I'd just gone through a divorce. So if you're gonna go back and look at that stuff, you're gonna take the whole person back there, and I don't know that I would ever want to do that again. So I really appreciate the times I had when I was young. I love them. I had some good times. I had some rough times. But I'm aware of those, and I do appreciate the person I am today. I really appreciate the wisdom I got from a lot of those things. And not to sound like, oh, everything's great all the time, but I do feel like I have a different type of decision making now than I did before because it comes from experience and it comes from really believing my gut. And that took me a long time to do. And so even now, sometimes I don't trust it. And then as soon as I don't trust it, I absolutely regret it. So, I've taken some time to learn who I am after going through a divorce, after going through the death of a parent, after leaving a job. I did a lot of those midlife shifts, and I think each one of them really teach us something, and they're pretty unavoidable.
One of the fun things that I have in my memory, so you'll have to excuse me, I sound like a stalker at this point because I'm just,
No, I
repeating all
love
the
it.
things that I okay. You had the and it was so timely because I was having a crisis about my knees and
Oh,
hemorrhoids, and so I was like, "Okay, right, it's time to, like, lower the hemlands. This is I don't
yeah,
my knees."
yeah,
And in every photo, all I would see was my knees, and every time I went and had a aesthetic procedure, I would say, "But can we put hyaluronic acid in my knees? Can we put Reduran in my knees? Can we laser my knees? Can we lift my knees? Can we have surgery on my knees?"
I
And of
know, I
course, my knees
know.
don't and of course, my knees are absolutely fine. But, when you fixate on something and then I was going down, like, quite the spiral about my knees, and I saw a post that you did
Yes,
about your knees and about hemlines, and you just went, "Damn it, I'm gonna wear my skirts short for as long as I want." And it
I
was
do.
s and seeing someone is always so powerful. Um,
Hmm.
who mentors you? Who is that person for you? Who do you stalk?
Who do I stalk?
Yeah, who do you stalk?
Who do I look
Who's
at
your
for
pinup?
inspiration? Oh gosh, there's so many women. I have like different lists depending on what it is. Some is for makeup, some is for hair, some is for for like I don't know how do they do that and they get all these things done. Organization. There's a lot. I have a list. I have a list, and I'm not shy about it. I like to cheerlead other women. I like to meet other women. I like to see what we can all offer and bring to the table because I think we all have something that we can do. And I guess I'm appreciative at this point in my life about the community that is around me. And I didn't think I would ever have before and now do. And I'm really grateful for it.
When you share some of these vulnerabilities, do you have a moment where you think, "Oh, I don't want to reveal that about myself," or have you ripped the
Oh,
Band-Aid
yeah.
off and you yeah.
Yeah, of course. I'm like, why did I say that? Should I say that? Should I post that? I don't know. And then I do. And I'm like, oh, somebody else has bad knees too, or thinks they had bad knees. So yeah, I think at this point I have that, you know, what are they, what are they going to say? They're not going to like my knees. And then what? So I feel okay with, with most of that. And I think if somebody finds it helpful, that makes me feel so much better. So, so much better.
In your podcast with Halle Berry, I think I was driving and I heard both of you talk about vaginal estrogen and, like, you both had
Yeah.
a bit of a giggle about it, like, "Woo, what a game changer. Yay, yay, back."
Yes.
And then you talked about testosterone. It's like, "Hey, hey, we're back." And it was so real and it was so female, and it's exactly how girls talk. And
Yeah.
again, having that in my ear, and it was you, and it was Halle Berry, and you were just like me, and it was so potent and powerful.
Yeah.
And and I think that for if it's not for any reason other than that, it once you speak it out loud, so many other people relate. And I'm
Oh
wondering
my
if you can
gosh.
share
You're
with
so
us,
right.
is there something that people always ask you about, whether it be about menopause or career or midlife? Is there the most common theme that you get asked?
Yeah. I think I get asked a lot about am I ever gonna have a good sex life again when it comes to menopause? And the answer is yes. And I think that the other question I get asked a lot is about starting over my career and how difficult, if that was difficult, and if I ever had any doubt about it. And the answer to that is yes. I had a lot of doubt about it. It took me a long time, and it was a very scary thing when you're comfortable and you're doing something that you've done for a long time. It can be hard when you lose that title or that position. It can be hard, but wow, I'm so glad I took that leap. And I often go back to my 85-year-old father who said, live your someday today. Like do it, Do it today, because if you don't do it today, when are you going to do it?
I always think that it's you just mentioned your 85-year-old father, which I think is a good kind of bouncing board for where I'm going with this. We're always asked, what advice would you give to your younger self? And by younger self, we're often taken back to maybe our teens or early 20s. I like to think that the younger self that I'd like to give advice to is me in my 40s, because I think
Yeah.
that just before menopause, where you feel like you've just got everything together. You're kind of in that time of your life where the runway is long and
Mhm.
you feel like you've hit your stride,
Yeah.
but you don't know what's around the corner. I think that that's the best time to give advice to your younger self, not in your teens because you're
Yes.
never going to listen,
No,
not
it's
in your
true, yeah.
20s because you're absolutely not going to listen. But what advice would you have given yourself in your early 40s?
Oh, I would have said, "Calm down, you will meet somebody again," because I went through a divorce, and I would say that, "Guess what? You have no idea what's in store. Just sit with it day by day and be present for all these great moments," because I had no idea that there was ever gonna be a second chapter or a third chapter. I had no idea there was gonna be another marriage. I could never have guessed any of that
And yet we're asked to have faith, right?
all the
So
time.
by storytelling, by examples. And one of the things that I think is most challenging is that when you in at your most vulnerable or challenged, whether it be your health or lifestyle stage
Mhm.
or life stage, to dig deep once again. And I
Yeah,
think that's where the conversation about reinvention sometimes feels like I don't have any more in the tank. And but
there's
as you
nothing
said,
left. Yeah.
some of those experiences that you've had, one of them could have been devastating. One of them can, throw your life off track. So after you've had all of these experiences and when you feel like you have no more to give, what do you think is that first principles next step that really helped you give a little more, trust a little harder?
I think one day at a time is what my father said to me after he lost my mom and my stepmom. I think that that's what it did. I don't know if it was one particular incident, but I know as one or two of those things build up, I started having that faith and really saying like, okay, it's going to be okay. I don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to be okay. And I think that a support system around you is really important during this time. I think a community in all these different areas, whether it's career or whether it's just as a friendship or going for a walk with somebody or just having somebody to pick up the phone and call, I think it's really essential, probably more than ever before.
Some of the physiological aspects of menopause and deficiency in estrogen can feel like they've changed us as who we are fundamentally. So,
Hmm.
you talk about this in your book, you talk about this on the M Factor, and certainly the experts do, the brain fog, and you experiencing that, as a broadcaster, your brain was probably as valuable as how you looked and how you presented on air because you had to be quick, you had to think on your feet, you had to pivot and draw on a deep body of memory to ask a question. So that can be quite debilitating for women, that
Yeah,
mood,
a
the
hundred percent.
memory. The other thing that I often hear, and certainly this was one of my own lived experiences, was that fluctuation in mood was something
Yeah,
so new
awful.
to me, and anxiety was a new visitor that I had never ever experienced before, and suddenly, it was clear and present, and I had to have strategies on how to avoid it and how to deal with it when it happened in places. And then there's the
Yeah.
intimate issues. We talk about sexual wellness, inability to enjoy intimacy, um, uh, everything, all the things that come with it.
Mhm.
Who have been the experts that you have most enjoyed on learning about the concerns? I know you've interviewed, I think, 48 different experts for your book.
Yeah. Yeah, I really enjoyed learning more about the brain. I think that has been essential for me because that was what one of the really hardest parts for me was brain fog and anxiety and not understanding where that all came from. And Dr. Lisa Mosconi, who's a neuroscientist, she has really been pivotal in this conversation. So I think she's been really exciting to learn from. I think all of the doctors that are part of the book have just been so gracious with their time, from the OBGYNs to sleep specialists. We talked to stylists even to talk about how clothes and your body changes during this time.
Yeah.
We talked to a skin specialist, hair specialist. Like, I just wanted to kind of get out of the doctor's office, even though we do hormones and non-hormones, and it hit every single part, you know, how to menopause. Like, I just think that we were never taught how to menopause. We were never told what it is. And I really wanted to create an ultimate manual for women to be able to say, okay, my sex life is okay, but my sleep is awful. So I'm going to open that chapter and see what I can do, and simplify it as much as possible with, with expert driven advice.
It's to me, it's again one of the reasons that I resonate so much with your content, and of course, 4 million other women do as well. So,
Thank you.
um, I just want to really recommend that to anyone who's listening to follow you, to read your book. And a lot of the experts that you speak to, we've had Dr. Doris Day on the show before, and she is an amazing
She's
expert,
wonderful.
a wonderful woman.
She's
And I
wonderful.
believe she's your dermatologist as well.
She
She's,
is. She is my
she's
dermatologist. Yeah.
UC. She's gorgeous. But I'm really pleased that you spoke to the other elements, taking it out of the doctor's office and talking about the other elements that women really do care about, how we do our makeup, what we wear, what our
Yeah.
hairstyle is. Can you talk about some of the best cheat codes that you've discovered, maybe for yourself or you've been someone else had shared with you that you think outside of the doctor's office, these are the great things to know?
Oh, yeah. I think, how to get a good night's sleep and really stay asleep. I think understanding makeup and how that can change in terms of what you're wearing, how you're applying it, how to keep it on so you're not sweating it off. Body odor was another big one for me. Libido and bedroom, like, that was another big one as well. And I also think community and workplace, those are two of the places that I think were important. And then finally, relationships. I mean, you have to take, this is the whole woman, a 360 of a woman. And I couldn't stop finding places that menopause hit, and I said, look, wow, menopause isn't just 12 months without a period. How we menopause means a whole lot more than that.
In Australia, the government just allocated $500 million to women's
Hmm.
health. And I know that I think you identified a $5 billion gap in women's health. Is that
Yeah.
globally or is that in the US?
I think that's in the US. I think that's in the US. Yep.
Wow, it's crazy, right? So menopause is, I guess, mainly spoken of in medical terms because
Sure.
it's a year after our last period, and we talk about a lot of the physical and emotional symptoms which can be treated with estrogen therapy. What happens after this big movement? Do we do we still talk about it as a menopause movement, or do we talk about it as a women's movement, a women's health movement?
Yeah, I think it has to be broader. I think it has to be women's health, because I think that menopause got us in the door, but we can't leave out the younger women, and we can't leave out women that think they're beyond some of these harder symptoms. And so I think it becomes a women's health. I think it becomes a women's movement is really what I think, and a women's health movement in particular, but that health encompassing that 360, so nothing's left out of there.
I think what you just said is so important. I speak to a lot of women. I host these beautiful events called Ageless Radiance Club, and it's a beautiful community, very luxurious immersion day where we talk about
It's
everything from
wonderful.
wellness and style and beauty and aesthetics and hormone health, all of it,
Great.
similar a 360 approach. But one of the things that I do get thanked for or I get messaged about when people are deciding whether or not they want to come is if
Hmm.
they are well past menopause, is there
Yeah.
still something there for them? And I think you're right,
Right. Yeah.
including the generations before and then women after menopause, engaging with them in a meaningful way is actually
Hmm.
key. And that's not a menopause movement, that's a women's health movement.
That is a women's health movement for sure. There's no question about it. There's a women's health movement for sure.
And What are your aspirations in the US? I mean, you've got the book, and I'm going to ask you how we can order the book in Australia. So
Thank you.
first, tell us how we can get our hands on the book here in Australia. I know
Oh,
that
yeah.
you
Yeah, anywhere books are sold, you can grab the book, How to Menopause. It comes out on the 25th all over the world. That's a global release. So I'm super excited about that. And I was talking to the publishers and I said, we have an incredible community of women in Australia, and we have to support them. So I'm super excited. We're going to have book clubs all over the world, and I'm excited for women to come together and share how they menopause, because I think that all of us have a lot to contribute. These were the 42 experts that I had for the book. There's a lot of women's stories in it, but I think real women have a lot of real answers, honestly, and I can't wait to hear from them.
And in terms of what's next for you, you kick the hornet's nest. It's extraordinary what you've achieved in such a
Thank
short
you.
time. It's wild.
Thank you.
And you've given us permission to do bigger, bolder, better things with our lives. What's on your mood board for you personally?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, a little bit of a vacation, I think, for sure, after the book tour. And then, I want to create. I have a podcast now that came out 2 weeks ago, and I really want to focus on that and telling women stories and giving women information that they need. And I don't know, we're looking at whether or not there's another factor around the corner. So I just feel like there's a lot more conversation.
Tamsin, it has just honestly been such a joy and thrill to meet you in
Thank
real
you.
life.
Thank you.
Please expect some DMs from me, because now I'm going to
I can't
actually be bold
wait.
and
I'll
like
be looking for
every
them.
time you post something, I'll be writing you like personal messages to say yes,
I'll be
yes, yes,
looking for them.
all the flaming emojis, all of them, all of them. But I want to thank you so much on the eve of your global book launch, 2 weeks after launching your incredible podcast. Just a matter of months after your film launch and a month after the hottest menopause party in the world, for coming on Ageless Radiance Club show. And it's truly an honor and a pleasure to have you.
I wouldn't miss it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the channel, sign up for our free newsletter, and consider leaving a review and rating it. This really helps the channel grow and reach new audiences.